Hi, welcome to this wonderful Zoom meeting. My name is Nancy Bernstein. I'm on the board of J Street, and I'm also a huge fan of the Parent Circle Families Forum. I've known them over a number of years, and it's such a privilege to introduce the co-directors, the current co-directors of the Parent Circle Families Forum, Bassam, Aramin, and Rami Elhanan. They were in Pittsburgh not long before the pandemic to speak at the Pittsburgh Arts and Lectures Series with the author Colum McCann, whose latest book is based on their lives. Our J Street chapter hosted them for a reception before the talk. And I always marvel at their ability to share their stories over and over and over again to numerous audiences. And each time I hear them speak, it's as if it were the first time. There's enormous power in the simple story of reconciliation between people who should otherwise be enemies. How does this happen? The Parent Circle is a joint Israeli-Palestinian organization made up of more than 600 bereaved families. Their common bond is that they have lost a close family member to the conflict, but instead of choosing revenge, they've chosen a path of reconciliation. Through the different works of the Parent Circle, bereaved members have joined together to take tens of thousands of Palestinians and Israelis on their personal journey of reconciliation. It's often raw and always emotional, but out of these interactions comes change, not the kind that makes headlines, but a more personal and profound shift in perspective. Bassam Aramin lives in Jericho in the West Bank. At the age of 17, he was incarcerated and spent 7 years in Israeli jail. He went on to study history and holds an MA in Holocaust Studies from the University of Bradford, England. He became a member of the Parent Circle in 2007 after losing his 10-year-old daughter, Abir, who was killed by an Israeli border policeman in front of her school. Bassam devotes his time and energies to his conviction for a peaceful, nonviolent end to the Israeli occupation of Palestine and to Israeli-Palestinian reconciliation. Bassam is the Palestinian co-director of the Parent Circle. Rami Elhanan is a seventh generation Jerusalemite. He identifies himself as a Jew, an Israeli, and before everything else, a human being. On the first day of the school year in 1997, Rami's daughter Smadar was killed by 2 Palestinian suicide bombers who murdered 5 people that day. Soon after, Rami joined the Parent Circle and speaks before Israeli, Palestinian, and international audiences. So now I'm gonna introduce Shiri Urian, who's the executive director of the Parent Circle, and she will be the moderator for today's Zoom conference.
Thanks so much, Nancy. Thanks so much, Nancy, and thanks so much to J Street for hosting us today. We appreciate the partnership, the long-standing partnership between the two organizations. As Nancy mentioned, I'm the executive director of the American Friends of the Parent Circle, and in the US, we work to raise awareness and support for the incredible work that these two men and our 12-person staff, Israeli and Palestinian staff, are doing on the ground every day. Today, not so much on the ground, but at least on the screen, are doing incredible reconciliation work. Just a couple of housekeeping issues. We have an hour together today. In that hour, we will first hear Rami and Bassam speak. They'll share their stories with us, their stories of loss, their stories of their unique choice for reconciliation rather than revenge. And they'll tell about the work of the Parent Circle, and I'll be able to ask them some questions that'll dive a little deeper into their stories and their work. And then our organization is all about dialogue. So we very much are going to leave plenty of time for you to ask your questions and be able to engage in dialogue with Bassam and Rami. So I'm going to turn it over to them. Rami and Bassam, they fight the most about the biggest fight that they have. They call each other brothers, but the biggest fight that they have is who is going to go first. So I don't know how you guys want to solve this age-old conflict, but I will leave that to you.
We never fought, Shirley, but Rami, start, please.
You just decide.
We never fight and I always lose. But this is a kind of losing which I like. This Palestinian terrorist by my side is my brother Bassam, the closest person to me on earth. He's much closer to me than many of my own people, many of my own family. And what makes us so close is the price that we both have paid as an outcome of this ongoing conflict between our two nations. We don't need words to understand each other. We share the same kind of pain. For me, Bassam is a leader. I look up to him. I admire him. And I take a lot of strength out of him and my other brothers and sisters, Israelis and Palestinians, members of this unique organization, which is known by the name of the Parent Circle, which is probably the only organization on earth that does not seek new members. The story that I will tell you now starts and also ends on one particular day of the Jewish calendar, which is known by the name of Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the holiest day of the year for Jews. This is the day where you ask forgiveness for your sins. On this very day, 46 years ago, I was a very young soldier fighting this horrible October 73 war. We've started it with a company of 11 tanks. We finished it with only 3. I've lost over there in the desert of Sinai some of my very close and best friends. I came out of it a very angry and bitter and disappointed young man with one determination to detach myself from any kind of commitment or involvement. I got out of the army. I went to Bezalel Art School to become a graphic designer. I got married and I had 4 kids. 36 years ago, on the very eve of Yom Kippur, September 1983, my daughter was born in Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem. Her name was Smadar. The name Smadar is taken from the Bible, the Song of Solomon. It means the grape of wine, which means the opening of the flower. She was really a very sparkling and vivid and joyful little girl. She was very beautiful. She was an excellent student. She was a swimmer. She was a dancer. She played the piano. She was amazing. Everybody used to call her the princess. And we lived a very good life in our house in Jerusalem. My wife, which is a professor for education in the Hebrew University, my 3 boys, and this princess. It was seemed to be the perfect sheltered, protected lives. In so many ways, you could say that we put ourselves inside a big bubble, completely detached from the outside world, minding our own business. I was doing graphic design for the right wing, for the left wing, whoever paid me. And life was relatively very comfortable and easy. This went on until about 23 years ago, on the 4th of September, 1997. This bubble of ours was blown up to millions of pieces. 2 Palestinian suicide bombers blew themselves up in Ben Yehuda Street in the center of Jerusalem, killing 5 people that day, including 3 little girls. One of these girls was my 14-year-old Smadar. It was Thursday afternoon and the beginning of a very long and a very cold night, which continues until today. At first, when you hear about the explosion, you keep hoping that maybe this time, this finger will not turn towards you. Then gradually you find yourself running in the streets, trying to find her. She completely disappeared. You go from hospital to hospital, from police station to police station, many long and frustrating hours, until eventually very late at that night you find yourself in the morgue in Abu Kabir, and this finger is stuck right between your eyes, and you see this sight which you will never ever be able to forget for the rest of your life. And then you get back home, the house is filled with thousands of people coming to pay respect, to offer condolences. This is the 7 days of the Jewish mourning period called Shiva. You are kind of enveloped by these thousands of people in a very clever traditional way that is designed to ease your passage to the new kind of life which waits for you. At the beginning, I thought that I could go back to my life. Foolishly enough, I thought that I could pretend as if nothing have happened and I can go back to my studio and lead a normal life. But nothing was normal anymore, and I was not the same person anymore. And about a year later, on some occasion, I met a big man who changed my life completely. His name was Yitzhak Frankenthal, a religious Jewish guy, you know, with a big kippah on his head. And you know how we tend to put people into drawers and stigmatize people. We judge people by the way they dress. And I was certain that he is a fascist, a right-winger, that he eats Arabs for breakfast. And I prepared myself to fight him. We started talking. He invited me over to watch a meeting of this group of crazy people. And I reluctantly went to see. And this meeting changed my life completely. It was 22 years ago. I was standing aside, very detached and very cynical, as I always am. And I watched those people coming down from the buses. And from the buses came down the people that for me, as an Israeli patriot, were always living legends, people that I used to look up to them and admire them and read about them in the newspapers, and never ever thought that one day I will become one of them. But the turning point was the watching of the Palestinian bereaved families coming down from the buses, walking towards me, shaking my hand for peace, hugging me, crying with me, and this meeting changed my life. You see, I was 47 years old at the time. Until today, I'm ashamed to admit it was the first time ever in my life I have met Palestinians as human beings, not as workers in the streets, and not as terrorists, and not as transparent people, as human beings who carry exactly the same burden that I carry, who suffer exactly like I suffer. And I was so deeply shocked and so deeply moved. I remember seeing this old Arab lady with this long black traditional Palestinian dress, and she had a picture of a 6-year-old kid on her chest, exactly like my wife carry the name of our daughter on hers. This meeting changed my life. From that moment on, I devote my life to go everywhere possible, to talk to anyone possible, people who want to listen, and people who will not listen, to convey this very basic and very simple message, which says we are not doomed. This is not our destiny to keep on killing each other in this holy land of ours, and we can change it. And the only way to change it is simply by talking to each other, because it will not stop unless we talk. There are about 600 families in the parent circles, and we bang our heads against this very high wall of hatred and fear that divide our two nations. And we put cracks in it, crack after crack, until we will put these walls down, because the alternative is too horrible. And the ally on our side is the power of our pain. You should know that the power of pain is really tremendous. It's very much similar to the nuclear energy. And like this horrible energy, you can use the power of pain to bring more pain, more death to people. And you can use it in order to bring light and warmth and hope. So we go around the country, we go from high school to high school, we talk to Israeli kids and Palestinian kids, and we tell them that our blood is exactly the same color, that our pain is exactly the same pain, and our tears are just as bitter. And if we who have every reason on earth to hate each other, if we who have every reason on earth to kill each other, if we can call each other brother, anyone can, anyone should. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Rami.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother. It's always a pleasure to be with you everywhere. And here I want to thank J Street for their ongoing support to the Parents Circle. It's a long friendship between us. I consider them as the reasonable voice in the Jewish world who call for ending the occupation, peaceful solution, two-state solution, respect each other. And this is exactly our message. This is exactly what we want. From the other side, my story, I will make it shorter because the main point, in fact, Nancy mentioned it, but how to move from this place of conflict, fighting, hatred, to a reconciliation, it's a longer process. In fact, I spent 7 years in jail, as you know, for resisting the occupation, for raising the Palestinian flag, which was a crime in that time, and I was 13 years old. In jail, I watched a movie about the Holocaust, which was unbelievable for me. It's to discover that they are human beings, can do the same to other human beings. It's unbelievable. And in spite, I believe that the Holocaust, or the number of the Holocaust, 6 million, it's a big lie. So after I watching this movie, I want to discover if it's a movie or if it's a big lie. And after so many years, I make my master degree about the Holocaust in Bradford University in the UK. In jail, you don't change your mind, you just become more determined to continue your fight, your struggle against this enemy, because their goal is to kill our humanity in jail, because for them we are the bad guys. And for us, we are in a mission to liberate our land, to protect our lives, to create a Palestinian state, a democratic state. And if you fight for your freedom, for your democracy, you will never get tired. In fact, it's a matter of education, how to move from one place to other place. I learned that if you know more, you act better. If you don't know, so you don't know. Especially when you learn that freedom, which is what we're fighting for, to be free. Freedom, it's not achievement. In fact, it's an opportunity to achieve achievement, to create achievement. If you cannot make a change, you need to know that you are a victim or you are not free. And in this case, we are free. We can make changes. We can create new things. So in fact, it's a longer process to discover that your enemy is exactly like you. Exactly. You are mirrors to each other. And we want the same thing. I get released in 1992 after 7 years. And I get married. I have 6 kids. In that time, in the Oslo Agreement, we get to learn that through negotiations, maybe we can achieve something. We start a peace business, and we try the armed struggle or the violence or whatever you call it, both sides, more than 100 years. And the result, until now, Israel is not safe, and Palestine is not free. Just more blood, more pain, more victims. So in one particular moment, I decided in 1994 that I will never use or support armed struggle because it doesn't work. As I said, we try it for many years, and we need to protect our people, our lives, our families. And this was my personal goal. I am not going to allow to my son, he born in 1994, to be in jail for 7 years because he wants to throw stones or to raise the flag. Now we are in a peace process. I can teach him. I have the experience. This is what I thought. And we need to go towards peace. In 2005, I was among a group of 4 Israelis, ex-soldiers, and 7 Israelis and 4 Palestinians, ex-prisoners. We create a movement, we call it Combatants for Peace, ex-Israeli soldiers, who practiced the occupation, who was everywhere in the West Bank and Gaza, and they get to understand that during their service, they just create more enemy in the Palestinian side. And the Palestinians, we understand that there is no military solution to this conflict. We need to work together as partners in order to be safe, to free Palestine from the Israeli occupation and to free Israel from the Israeli occupation, because we are all victims to this occupation, to this political situation. So in 1 year, we became 300 members from both sides, Israelis and Palestinians, ex-enemies. And our slogan was what Nelson Mandela says: if you want to make peace with your enemy, you need to work with your enemy. Then he became your partner. So it's not only dialogue groups, it's beyond dialogue. We need to start to talk. It's not an easy thing to do. It takes a long time, but when we talk, we need to act. 2 years after we create Combatants for Peace, in 2007, on the 16th of January, an Israeli border police teenager shot and killed my 10 years old daughter, Abir, from a distance of 15 to 20 meters in her head from the back. Unfortunately, with American rubber bullet from an American M16, from an American Jeep, in the front of her school. She fell down, and 2 days later, she passed away in Hadassah Hospital, where she born, and where Smadar born and died. Between Abir and Smadar, it's 10 years. But it's the same enemy, the same killer, who take off the lives of our beloved daughters. It's the Israeli occupation as a source of this conflict, as our common enemy, Israelis and Palestinians. In fact, I joined the parent circle 2 days after I lost Abir, because I know my brother Rami 2 years before. I know the parent circle, their message, but in my worst dream, I don't want to join this amazing group. As Rami mentioned, the most difficult issue is to discover that there is no revenge. It means to kill the rest of the Jewish on earth. You will never meet your daughter again. And the problem, it's nothing to do with your pain. It's 24 hours, forever. You need to know how to use this pain, how to manage this pain to survive. This is exactly what I said to the victim who killed my daughter in the Israeli court after 3 years, that I need you to know that you are not a hero, you are not a warrior. You didn't kill the enemy or the terrorist, you just killed 10 years innocent girl. And if you think it's okay to kill my daughter, you can enjoy your crime. I don't ask for revenge because I don't take revenge from victims. But in any day in your life, if you come to ask me to forgive you, always you will find me there. I will forgive you, but it's not because of yourself. It's because of myself, because I love my daughter and because I have another 5 kids. I want to raise them up in a different way. I don't want them to be victims to you as a victim. Again, it's a long process to move from this place of hatred, revenge, fighting. And I am not a coward, believe me, I can fight. To move to this place of reconciliation, friendship with those enemies, even without changing your goal. It's the same goal, the same thing. But how to achieve this goal? Gandhi says, don't give anger away because you will harm yourself. This is exactly the point. You look for the effective ways not to harm yourself first. Then you don't harm others. When we talk to each other, no one will die. We can convince each other. Then we become partners. We can fight together to protect our kids, our families, our life, our land, without dying. Always I finish with our beloved Jerusalem, our holy place. It's a holy place for the Christians. It's a holy place for the Jewish. It's more than holy for the Muslims. It's the paradise. And every Muslim around the world wish to die in Jerusalem without any connection to the Israelis or the Jewish, because we believe this will be the paradise. So instead of to enjoy this love to Jerusalem, we kill each other for Jerusalem, but we meet each other under the ground. And I am not sure if Jerusalem know who we are, if we are exist at all. We need to decide who is more important, our lives or the holy stones of Jerusalem. We proved that when we were together as partners. We don't need to love each other. We don't need to hug each other. We can survive without eating together, without dancing together. But we need to respect each other. We have the right to exist, both of us. We are equals. And COVID-19, this killer virus, give us a very simple message. You are the same, and you are very simple. When death comes, you cannot protect yourself. Stop fighting each other. Stop killing each other. So we prove that we can be partners, we can be friends, we can be brothers. And in my case, in Rami's case, and many other Israelis and Palestinians, we became a family, and our relationship is above the conflict. Thank you very much for listening.
Wow, thank you, Bassam. You guys, your stories, I've heard them hundreds of times, and it's amazing, really, what Nancy said in the beginning, how moving they are every time. And I don't know if you saw, but Rami at some point held up a picture of Smadar and a beer. Rami, can you hold that up again? And can we make Rami also bigger? J Street friends, wherever you are out there. This is a beer on the left and Smadar on the right. Two beautiful young girls lost needlessly. And so many people really have been lost needlessly. So many, all of our members, the 600 families that make up the Parent Circle, they have all lost someone to the conflict, a close member of their family. And they, like Bassam and Rami here tonight, they share their stories with Israelis and Palestinians and all over the world, to people to inspire some hope, because really if these two people who paid the highest price to the conflict can call each other brother, then anyone should be able to. You guys are very polite. You can feel free to ask questions in the chat on the right. There's a little button on the bottom that says chat. You can send feedback or ask questions, and I'll take them in a little bit. But before we go to your questions, what I'd love, Bassam and Rami. Rami, you've been co-director of the Parent Circle now for 4 years almost, and Bassam, it'll be a year soon, but Bassam has been a staff member of the organization for many years. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how the work has changed over the past few years, and then more specifically, what does bringing Israelis and Palestinians look like today under this unprecedented situation that we're living in? I'm going to pick one of you if you don't choose.
Please do.
I
I would just to draw your attention to a new wave of violence that is emerging for the last few days. Yesterday, a 21-year-old soldier was killed in the West Bank, and today a 14-year-old kid in Hebron. And this wave of violence is the essence for our existence of an organization. And the slogan that we put today on Facebook, crying out loud for our both societies, telling them it will not stop unless we talk. We cannot go on killing each other forever. We have to understand that our blood is the same, that our tears are the same, and we need to stop it. We need to find ways to talk to each other. So this is the essence of our work, and this is the most important thing to remember these difficult hours. For the last 2 months, we are concentrating on trying to keep on our work as if nothing had happened, but the world turned upside down. And from a lot of activity on the ground, against all odds, against anger and frustration on both sides, and highly emotional reaction, we found it very, very difficult to conduct our activities on the ground, facing angry Palestinians, facing the plan of the century, the peace plan of the century, which is not peace and not a plan, which creates a lot of anger and frustration. On the other hand, it's very difficult to get into Israeli high schools who blaming us for bringing terrorists to the classes of their sons. So we are facing two very angry societies. Ever since the last 2 months, we are concentrating on the Zoom meetings. And this is really amazing. Our ability to talk to as many people as we could in high school classes, meeting like this. We had a 500 people webinar about a couple of weeks ago. And the peak of it was the alternative memorial ceremony, which had almost 200,000 followers. This is a sense of achievement because no one can silence us.
I want just to add how this affects our work in a very difficult way. In fact, it's a bad news for us that the main donor of our summer camp withdrew the commitment from this year, 2020. For so many long years, every year, we have a summer camp for our kids and their friends from the parent circle from the age of 14 to 18. It's one of our main activities for the last 3 years. It's around 60 to 80 participants, which is amazing. They spend 1 week together. It's very important for us that those kids who participate as participants in this year, next year they will become facilitator or manchim.
Counselors.
Yes, so this year they told us that they cannot donate for the summer camp, which is a very sad news. So we start to discuss that under any circumstances, we will make this summer camp, summer program for our kids, and they are waiting for that. We cannot let them down. Maybe if it's not in July as expected, we will make it in August, just to make sure that we will be safe, or a safe place to be protected if the Israeli and the Palestinian authorities allow that during the COVID-19. So I really want to ask you to help us in making this summer program. The other activities, we find ourselves visit many Israeli houses, and the Israelis visit many Palestinian houses. So the webinars and Zoom, many activities continue on Zoom, the same meetings. And the amazing thing that for the Palestinians, we don't need to get permits. We don't need to cross checkpoints for hours. Just 1 minute you meet your audience. And some Israelis and Palestinians said it was amazing, this experience, to go to to see the houses, the families, again without permits, in a lovely way. And Next week, we will have Ramadan Iftar also. It was a habit for the parent circle for many years. We make a one-day big iftar for Israelis and Palestinians, like 100, 200 people. And this year we will make it online. We will share the same almost food, dates and water to give them the feeling that we are together, we still together, we will continue to be together, even not only the authorities prevent us to be together, through Zoom, we will be together.
Amazing. Iftar by Zoom. Iftar, for anyone who doesn't know, is the breaking of the Ramadan fast. And someone's asking about where Bassam is sitting. He's sitting right outside his home in Jericho. And every time we do these Zooms, I wish I was there soon enough. You guys, there's questions coming in, and also most people, I hope, know that you are the protagonists of the best-selling novel Apeirogon, and we're doing a giveaway today, actually, for everybody who's here. We have the two winners of our Apeirogon raffle. They are, drumroll please, Denise Tall and Alberto Gedisman. You are the lucky winners of a copy of Apeirogon signed by award-winning author Colum McCann. So congratulations. But can you,
Mabruk.
Yeah, Mabruk. Rami and Bassam, can you tell us a little bit about, or a lot about, what it was like to be, or what it is like to be the main characters of a best-selling novel? And do you feel like anything is missing from that story, or anything should be added or changed to the book? Rami, I know you've always said that reading the book was sort of like hearing your voice on tape. It's, you know, it's your voice, but it doesn't exactly sound like you pictured it.
Well, it is quite embarrassing when someone writes a book about you and your history and your story and your family and your friends. And but on the other hand, it's quite flattering, and he did a wonderful job, because the book is a work of art. It's a masterpiece. I've read it on our way to the United States on the plane, and I almost finished it on one flight, which is amazing. And I just skipped the embarrassing parts about me riding on my bicycles towards the sun.
Is it missing anything for you, Rami? What's in the book that should be changed?
No, the book is a combination of a multi-layer look at our tragedy and the situation in Palestine and Israel, and it's a masterpiece in the way that it has so many layers and so many angles to such a painful story, that it is fascinating, the way of telling a story. And I'm really grateful that this story was told by Colum McCann in a way that gives us a lot of respect, and our story a lot of respect, and it enlarges our ability to bring our message to as many people as possible. And this is the main thing. If really Steven Spielberg who bought the rights for this book, will make a movie from this book, then the message that we are struggling so hard to convey, to bring forward, that we don't have to keep on killing each other, is the most important way to bring this message to as many people as possible. This is important.
Bassam, you want to add something?
You want me to add after what Rami talked? I agree with him. Of course, and I need everyone in the world to read this book. But the secret, I didn't read it. It's very difficult for me, personally. It's not easy to read someone who describes your pain. It's very difficult for me. And the most important thing that I gain from this book, I have the honor to know this genius and noble human beings, Colum, to be my friend and my brother. It's amazing, but as Rami mentioned, it's not about personal glory. It's about a message that we need everyone in the world to hear it, to listen to it. And by this book and hopefully a movie, it will change or touch millions of hearts around the world. And this is exactly what we want.
It really is an amazing book, and it is an incredible way for us to be able to broadcast our messages. It is important. The name of the title of the book, a lot of people are asking, is Apeirogon. Apeirogon. Christopher can write it in the chat box, by Colum McCann. This is what it looks like. Rami is showing you, if you can see. And we had a couple of webinars with Colum, and we've shared that recording in the chat box as well. I think it's time to turn it over to our more than 100 people participating in today's webinar. So I'm going to share some of the questions both in the Q&A and in the chat box. The first question from Meredith is, how does the organization tackle disagreeing views among members that tend to invoke intense responses between those who disagree? For example, a one-state versus a two-state solution.
I can say that every member, maybe all the members, they disagree about many things. To make it shorter, except me and Rami, we agree about everything and anything. I say that loudly. We never fought about the one state or two states or 5 states, about Jerusalem, even about Mecca. And we don't discuss that because we have only one goal. The only political announcement that we say, the occupation must be end, because this is the reason why this 19-year-old soldier yesterday killed in Jenin and 14-year-old kid in Al-Fawar in Hebron. If there is no occupation, we don't need to fight. We don't need to kill each other. We will keep the same number of the bereaved families. We don't want anyone to join us or to grow. So even if someone brought one-state solution or two-state solution, it doesn't matter. All of us agree about non-violent struggle against the occupation, in the occupation, and this is the basic thing that we need to agree. Rami, want to add something, please?
I always say that we are not a political organization in the sense that we don't draw lines on maps and we don't phrase articles of peace agreements. And this enables us to get into high school classes and to talk to a wide range of the public in Israel and in Palestine. We are very much political in the understanding that the occupation took away our children. And this situation in which one people is dominating another must stop. This is the essence of the problem. We are not talking about solutions. It's not up to us. It's up to the peoples and the politicians to decide what will be the answer. But one thing is certain. One people cannot dominate another people. And people need to be equal, and people need to be respected. You need to be able to respect the guy next to you exactly as you want to be respected yourself. No more, no less. And this is the essence of our activity. So we don't fight about this. We fight about other things.
Like what we're going to eat for lunch. Bassam, a question for you. A question that we've never received before, so I don't know how you're going to answer it, but I trust you. Can I trust you?
Yes, of course.
So the question from Sharon is, Bassam, do you recognize the right of Israel to exist as a Jewish state?
Next question. Is it a good answer? Israel have the right to exist, and they can give their name. They can call themselves anything. the Jewish state, the Zionist state, the Islamic state, Israeli state. I don't decide for them. It's their name, so it's up to them.
Mm.
I don't go to the political content of the Jewish state for the Jews. Is it represent all the Jews? It's something different. But for myself, I respect any name that Israel gives to itself. But they have the right to exist, of course. As a state, of course.
I would like the privilege of not answering this question because I don't think this question is on the debate right now. But I will say to anyone involved that the happiest day of my life will be when this guy, Mr. Bassam Aramin, will be my president, my emperor, my king, whatever he needs to be. I'll be delighted.
I am not going to convert, Mr.
Jewish or not Jewish?
Okay, I'm looking for more questions. They're here. Is Parent Circle working with young people as well as parents to prevent them from using violence?
You can answer it, Shiri.
I know I can, but they came for Rami and Bassam. All right, I'll ask the question and I'll answer it. The answer is certainly yes. Our oldest, longest standing project are called dialogue meetings, where we work mostly in Israeli high schools, and people like Rami and Bassam, one Israeli, one Palestinian, go into the school. Sometimes we speak in many classrooms at the same time. We work with the teachers in advance to prepare them, and they share their stories just like they did here in this webinar. And most of the time, it's the first time that an Israeli will meet a Palestinian just as a human being. They have an opportunity to ask questions. They have an opportunity to engage in dialogue. We also have the summer program, which Bassam mentioned, every year, that works with our bereaved youth. So they're coming from bereaved families, and these youth hold a very special place in our heart, and that's why Bassam was saying that we cannot disappoint them this summer. We have to go on with the summer camp, and we'll find whatever way possible. The summer camp has been going on for so many years that then the youth sort of graduated from being able to be campers. They graduated from being able to be counselors. And then they still wanted to be a part of the Parent Circle. We wanted them to be a part of our leadership. So we created a program called the Young Ambassadors for Peace, which is taking these sort of young adults from 18 to 22 Israelis and Palestinians and training them to be sort of the next generation of leadership for the Parent Circle. And this, we've worked with already 2 cohorts, and we'll start with more. It's ongoing all the time. So yes, young people is really important to us. We also work with adults.
Just to add that in the end of the summer program or the young ambassadors, we invite the mothers and the parents to be with them in the last day. So they teach them, in fact, how to grow up. They are the first school. And here I mentioned what Mahmoud Darwish always said and teach us, that I have no time to hate those who hate me. I am busy to love those who loves me. This is how we grow up our kids, how we teach them, and through their joint activity with the Israeli kids, they discover that they are just kids like them. They are not all the Israelis as like soldiers in the checkpoints. You cannot talk to them. And from here, we start the process to teach them during this, through this relationship, that dialogue and multi-understanding is very important.
Mm-hmm. Bassam, another question for you. Do Palestinian people object overtly, openly to terrorist organizations in the West Bank and Gaza? And why don't we hear about this?
I feel it's like anti-Semitic, like all the time to ask only me.
I'm sorry. The next question will be for Rami. That's very nice of you to worry about the Jews.
I can answer this question also.
I know. I know it's a very complicated question for people who don't understand, who think that we are 2 equal parties. There is a terrorist group fighting a moderate or a democracy. No, it's not like this. I believe for many years, the Palestinians, they are against what we call to harm the civilians. But the fact that we become very similar, all the civilians in Israel killed by Palestinians, and what Palestinians by Israelis. So we became very similar. It's a different culture. Most of the Palestinians, the mass majority, they want peace. They want a Palestinian state beside Israel, equal rights. The mass majority, believe me, but they need to see hope. The same people who are like extremists, always I said, me and Rami, just give us the media for 1 year and we will end the occupation. We will end the conflict. We will have peace agreement. It's how the media reflect the conflict. It's to serve the political agenda. As long as the occupation continue, unfortunately, the struggle, the armed struggle, the violent struggle is something you can justify, because I remember Theodore Herzl says, or even Jabotinsky, oppression create resistance. Those people under the occupation, they need to resist. Now, how to resist? Sometimes become very, very violent, and even very, not violent, more than violent, like to kill kids. It's a crime, which is not something easy, and no one can accept it. For that, I said always that we become a very brutal societies to justify the killing of kids under any name of to protect the Jewish nation or to liberate Palestine. It's not acceptable. For that, like 10 years ago, it was a tragic accident. 2 Palestinians, teenagers, killed an Israeli family in a settlement, including 2 months baby. I cannot live with that. I feel shame. It's not Palestinians. This is not our values. Even in the middle of the war, you are not allowed. So I wrote a letter to the family of those settlers to tell them that it's a terrorist attack, it's a criminal, it's not in my name, and I am with you. Because we need to be honest with yourself. And I believe even in that time, Hamas condemned this. It's to protect your values. But unfortunately, even you try to protect your values, you committed to many shameful crimes against civilians.
Wow, I didn't know that you wrote that letter, Bassam.
Yes.
Rami, did you want to add something?
Yeah, it's one of the most amazing, touching, sensitive, and human letters that I ever read in my life. The tragedy was overwhelming and painful, and we tend to forget. We tend to look at the at reality through the very narrow keyhole of the last event, and we tend to forget the events that was prior to this event. The killing of the soldier yesterday, and prior to that, the killing of Palestinian youth the day before, and other events, and this creates a mentality. 1 month after the 6 Days War, in July 1967, an advertisement was put in Haaretz newspaper. And the language of the advertisement is like this: our right to defend against extermination doesn't give us the right to oppress others. Occupation brings foreign rule, foreign regime. Foreign regime creates resistance. Resistance creates oppression. Oppression creates terror, and terror creates counter-terror. And the victims of terror are usually innocent people. Right. And the keeping of the occupied territories will turn us into a people of murderers and murdered. We need to get out of the occupied territories. This is July 1967. And we tend to forget that George Washington was a terrorist for the English. And Menachem Begin was a terrorist for the English also. And Nelson Mandela was a terrorist. And when you push someone to the corner and they don't have guns and they don't have tanks and they don't have airplanes, and you humiliate them and you give them no other choice, they will bite back. Any kind of violence is immoral. Any kind of killing innocent people is unforgivable. We need to stop killing the mosquitoes and we need to dry the swamp. This is my answer for the terror accusation.
Thank you both. We're getting a lot of requests if we could share that letter. I don't know, we could talk about it afterwards, both the letter that Bassam mentioned and what you just read, Rami. I think that's our time, unfortunately, that we have to say goodbye.
Good morning.
Someone is asking if there will be a recording. Yeah, I saw that Nate from J Street said that yes, there will be a recording available. I don't know if you're going to be sending that around, but Parent Circle will send an email to everybody on this webinar with some of the information that we've talked about. Some more links. Rami and Bassam are also the protagonists of a documentary called Within the Eye of the Storm. We can share that as well. Christopher, who's on our team, is also shared in the chat box links to Apeirogon and our website and signing up for our newsletter. In normal times, Bassam and Rami and other of our members come to the US several times a year to speak to audiences. We don't know when that's going to happen again, but if you'd like to invite us to your communities to share with your congregations or your schools or your other organizations, then we would be happy to speak to them as well. So I want to just say thank you again, mostly to Rami and Bassam for continuing to share their hearts with us, and to J Street for hosting us here today, and for all of you for being such incredible and engaging participants. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Ma salam.